James and Colin. We're joined today by our very special guest, Puff Summers. For those of you that don't know, Puff came to Ireland from America originally to play basketball with the team in Kilkenny. So Puff, I just want to start this off by asking, when you first came to Ireland as a black man, did you meet any racists, or even, I know your partner is Caucasian, and in Ireland, I suppose interracial relationships aren't that common, especially then, maybe common now. But were you met with any kind of backlash, or?
Well, the first team that I came to was the team in Ballina in Mayo, and this was back in 2007. Yeah. So I think they had a history. They had a great basketball history there, and there were a lot of Black Americans kind of coming in and out every year. So to be one of the one or two new Black faces, it wasn't anything new in Ballina. You know what I mean? And then we also had, Ballina also had Diora Marsh, who's like a legend of Irish basketball. And so he came over here in the 80s during the golden era of basketball in Ireland, and moved and settled in Ballina. So, for me being the short, Black American coming over, it wasn't as big a deal as seeing, the big 6'6" Diora Marsh walking around town every day. They had been accustomed to that for the last 30 years, So, so coming over here, it wasn't, I didn't experience anything that made me, kind of think twice about anything. So, everybody was nice when I came over, and, they welcomed me into, to the community there. I was the American professional basketball player, and they just, they kind of treated me as such.
And did you find any, or did you notice any difference in the quality of basketball compared to here in America?
Well, yeah, it's different. I think now the quality of basketball has even improved since 2007. But
Right.
When I came over here, obviously it's a different level. I just, I'd finished playing at Davidson, which was Division I in American colleges a couple years before. So, everything is pretty much professionally run, in NCAA Division I. So I think it was more the time spent towards the game. So over here it was 2 or 3 practices a week. You didn't really get to be with your team much. So the sharpness is just a lot different, unless you're in the gym by yourself during the daytime, which maybe only the 1 or 2 pros were doing, then, obviously there's going to be the drop off of that, that sharpness in the game. So that was the biggest difference for me, is just the time spent in the gym.
Right.
And how much of a culture shock was it coming from America to the west of Ireland? Like, they're obviously 2 very different places. So how did you find the adjustment?
It was different. Like, I'm a country boy at heart. I'm from a small town in Virginia called Culpeper, Virginia. But it's close enough to Washington, D.C. to where I can, I could claim D.C. if I wanted. So people, when they ask me where I'm from, I say Virginia, but near D.C. But I'm still, I have that country boy in me. So coming to the west of Ireland, it was, it wasn't that big of a culture shock. But what I did realize is that every book that you buy, looking to do the tourist stuff in Ireland, it's, you look for stuff in Mayo, and it's like, damn, there's nothing to do in Mayo. a bit of fishing, a bit of salmon fishing. But so when I got there, I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna be about, kind of hoop and that's it, and that was okay with me.
And did you regret the decision initially, or did you feel a bit homesick?
I was never homesick. I went to a boarding school in high school. So I was away for my 4 years in high school from home. And then obviously I went to college at Davidson, which was like 7 hours away. So I was away. And then I played in England and the UK the year before. So I hadn't been home in so long that, this was just the next step, or the next journey for me. So, coming over here, I was excited. I did have a job offer in Denmark that I kind of turned down. My agent told me that, he had this job for me in Ireland, and it was English speaking. So there were times during the year when I was in Ballina that I was like, man, what would it have been like to have gone to Denmark? But things obviously happen for a reason, and looking back now, it was the best thing for me,
It's Colin here. I just have a quick question for you, man. When you were growing up in Culpeper, one thing that I've found in terms of meeting with a lot of Americans over the years, and even my grandparents themselves being American, is that a lot of Americans actually haven't traveled much outside of the country. So I'm wondering, man, when you were growing up, how much did you travel and stuff? And in terms of like, the reason I bring it up is because, a lot of people in the US today, there's a big conversation about the race issue, which has been plaguing the country for hundreds of years. And I'm kind of wondering, is there like a lack of communication and link between different communities? And that's also, I guess, coming from lack of travel, but also lack of mingling with people in the community themselves.
Yeah, I think you're dead on there. I think, for my family, when I got married in 2011, I had to fill out everything for my mom's passport and my brother and my sister's to make them get a passport, to make them, please come to my wedding, man. This is my wedding, So that was their first time ever. That was for all three of them. That was their first time ever even being on an airplane.
Wow.
So that was the level of, not small-mindedness, but kind of that small town mindedness that I grew up in. And, for me, if it weren't for basketball, I would have never traveled anywhere. I ended up, I went to Las Vegas and California, and, I went to all these different states for these AAU tournaments when I was, 13, 14, 15 years old. And, New York, I was just all over the country playing basketball. And from that, it was just like, man, it's a lot of people in the world that I haven't seen being in Culpeper, Virginia. You know what I mean? So I was blessed to go to a really prestigious boarding school in Central Virginia. And then I went to a school in Davidson that was, I think, 85% white. So it's just, it just showed me a whole different world that was out there. And, I think for a lot of Americans, they're staying within their specific town, within their specific state. So they're not seeing, even within America, how diverse it is. So we talk about race relations, and it's like, the only people that people know are the people that they've grown up around. And, you might have certain stereotypes or certain stigmas that you feel about that certain group that you've seen your whole life that you might not even know that there might be, so if you come from a poor area and there's just a few Black people there that are poor, you might think that this is how all Black people are. And then you go to New York and you see all these prestigious Black people, and it's just like, damn, I didn't know people that look like me were this successful, you know what I mean? And that are doing stuff besides, playing sports or rapping or in movies or entertainment, you know what I mean? So now when you start to see all that, then it really opens your eyes up. So, I've been one of the lucky ones for sure, that I've gotten to travel, and my family's gotten to travel a little bit because of the route that my life has taken, So, but the lack of travel is definitely an issue for a lot of Americans.
And what was it that actually got you into playing basketball in the first place when you were sitting at home in Culpeper?
I think it's, it's the same thing for every kid. It's just like you try a bunch of sports, and whatever your friends are doing, you do. And then, so I played American football. I did a little bit of tennis just because, like a couple of my cousins played tennis, and then what else did I do? I played baseball a little bit, but that damn ball came too fast. So that was quickly gone for me. I ran track, so I did athletics. So I did a lot of things growing up. And then my dad was really big into basketball. So, that was kind of our thing, going to the park. Just me and him. And then, my parents got divorced when I was 10 or 11. So that was kind of when he left, that was kind of the thing that I wanted to carry forward. That was the thing that it made us closest. So this is the thing that I want to excel in. And so, so I stayed at it, and it was something that I wasn't, one of the best players. I was short. I was kind of pudgy when I was younger. It's just something that I loved. I just fell in love with, and it kind of became my go-to when things were going down. It's just something I can do and be by myself and, be in that bubble. So, it saved me from a lot of bad decisions, I'm sure. And, I'm just very lucky that I happen to be pretty good at it, as I went forward.
And Pop, since you've been in Ireland, I know you're just speaking there about the other sports you used to play, but since you've been in Ireland, have you tried your hand at any Irish sport?
So when I was living in Ballina, actually, Liam McHale, everybody knows Liam McHale, but Liam McHale was he was helping out with the Stephenites, the local club in Ballina. So he used to bring me down there, and I do all the training stuff. So I'd go lift with them 2 or 3 times a week. And so I'd go do the running, but I didn't understand. So like basketball is like you can talk trash all the time, and this is kind of who I am. I'm the loud, American when I get on the court. And then like in Gaelic, like in the GAA, you just don't do that. So we'd be going on runs, and I'd be beating some of the guys in the sprints, and I'd be like, "Where y'all at? Where y'all at?" And you could just see everybody is just mad. Like you just don't talk. You just do your work. You run the laps, and that's it. So. So they weren't too fond of me there, I don't think. But then, so I went out on the pitch a few times, and we were doing some of these ball drills, like keep away and all this stuff, and I would get it, and I just felt like people were just aiming. They were just coming to hit me, and I was like, okay, let me shut my mouth. And about 2 or 3 practices, I got hit a couple of times. I was like, nah, it's cold out here, ground is hard. Nah. So yeah, I tried a little bit of Gaelic football. I say if I had grown up here, it would have been something that I would have fell in love with for sure.
Yeah, and you've mentioned in other interviews that you had a series of banking interviews back home in America. Do you often wonder how it could have gone if you had opted for the banking sector and not pursued basketball?
I do. I think about it sometimes, but I would have been miserable, man. I know it. I know it in my heart. I was doing it, and I was doing these interviews, and I probably majored in economics because that was like, I need to be more than an athlete. I need to be more than just this kid from Culpeper who can play basketball. You know what I mean? So like, it wasn't something that my heart was in. I was pretty good at it, and I got good grades in college or whatnot. But mostly getting good grades was because I needed to stay eligible to play basketball, and it was just my life. It was my love. If I had done it, I think I would have put my whole heart into it, and I would have became good at the job because, I think learning from basketball and kids who play sports, it gives you a certain toughness and a certain mental aspect about anything you attack in life. But I can't see my life being as good as if I was a banker.
And Puff, just something that maybe you can reflect on yourself as an athlete and as somebody who excelled in economics, as you say, and that you were interviewed for a lot of these banking positions. A lot of people are very critical of the approach to third level education in the US with regards to these massive tuition fees, massive student debt, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the other sides I can see of it, I guess it depends on your perspective, but one of the really interesting sides of it is that there's a lot of scholarships out there for athletes as a result.
Yeah.
Go to different schools. And in Ireland, we either have free fees for people through Susie, or people pay a very nominal fee of €3,000. I guess 3,000 can be for a lot for people coming from a poor background. But there aren't so many sports scholarships. So I was wondering, what do you think of that kind of model, that if we had more sports scholarships in Ireland, it could help people get to university level and also maybe propel the future of different sports in the country?
Yeah, well, I think, like you just talking about the cost of college tuition in America is crazy. Like the Davidson where I went, I think the tuition now is $59,000 a year, $59,000 a year, which is astronomical, man. It's crazy. And then, so talking about the boarding school that I went to, my high school, the tuition there is $52,000 a year. You know what I mean? Which is even more crazy. So my family always jokes and they say, you have like $500,000 like education that has been paid for you. And they're usually saying it to make fun of me when I say something stupid or something. You know what I mean? Like you have a $500,000 education and you're saying whatever. But, do I think it would help in Ireland? I just look at the kids who get to go to college for such a small amount here. And I'm just like, they should just be so blessed. You know what I mean? I think there are more sports scholarships being thrown out there. I think there are a lot of Americans coming in on scholarship doing their masters. So I was playing with Templeogue last year, and we just partnered with college, and we actually brought in 3 scholars. So 3 American scholars who came in and got masters, which they never probably would have got, in America. And then we had a Spanish guy who got a master's, and then we had 2 Irish kids who were on scholarship there, who had their accommodation paid for, which is just, unbelievable. Like, you think about how much it costs for somebody coming outside of Dublin to come live in Dublin to go to college. So it's a big deal. So I think schools are reaching out a little bit more. And I think what Griffith is trying to do a little bit more, and this is just because I know what's going on behind the scenes there, is they're trying to open it up a lot more to Irish people, as opposed to always bringing in, the Americans and the foreigners as their scholar students. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a great opportunity. Like, it's just, my daughter will be 12 this year, and 12 is not that far from 18 and having to think about the whole college system. And just, so for me, it's like, my dream is like, okay, I wanted to really be a serious basketball player and get a scholarship and go play in America. But that doesn't matter to me at all if she didn't want to do it at all. And then we know that she's going to have a college education if that's what she wants. You know what I mean? Like, we live in a country where it's going to happen, and I feel blessed to be in this situation,
And Puff, you just mentioned about your daughter there. I'd just like to know if, since you're from America yourself, have you ever thought on what it would be like if you were raising your family in America versus Ireland?
I think about it all the time. I think about it every day, and my family is always like, when are you going to move back over here? Yeah. And I feel they're so much safer here. I feel they're safer. I feel like, we see everybody, like, there's all the protests and everything is going on, and everybody is concerned about the way police brutality is in America. And, my wife even said, like, we'd really never consider moving back now with the way things are in America now. And I'm like, now, like, it's been like this. You know what I mean? Like, just because people are protesting now, it doesn't mean it hasn't been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that fear was always there. Like, when I'm 18, 19, and you're thinking about, what's my life going to be like when I have kids, it's always that fear of, this is a crazy world they have to grow up in. So the fact that I'm now living in Ireland and I have 2 daughters who are half Irish, I don't ever want to move back there. You know what I mean? Because it's always been crazy for little black boys and little black girls growing up. So, like, whatever my kids have to deal with in Ireland, and they are different. My daughter's the only black girl in her class, and the kids always look at her hair. Her hair is different. They want to touch her hair. They want to feel it. So she's dealing with different things and different issues that most Irish kids might not have to deal with. And, that's part of their territory. That's fine. We can still walk down the street, and the guards, we're not shuddering at the thought of a guard passing by us. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing. So I have no want to move and raise my kids in America.
And you mentioned, sorry to put you off, James. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned police brutality in the US, Puff. Do you think that a model like An Garda Síochána here in Ireland would work in the US, or do they need to implement something different? Because we've seen in the last couple of weeks that Minneapolis were looking at defunding the police force and introducing a more community-based policing program.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm in a position to be able to say what will work and what wouldn't work. I just think that with the amount of guns that are in America, it's just, being a policeman is a scary ass job, man. Like, I wouldn't, you pull somebody over and you don't know what's going to happen, because everybody and their mama got a gun in America. You know what I mean? So a lot of police men and women have quick triggers, but a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is they have quick triggers when there's no threat posed. That's the scary part, is that they're not under duress. They're not under stress. They're not under, seeing somebody with a gun about to pull it on them. They're just, these deaths are happening for no apparent reason, it seems. So like would the guards, like the way that the Garda is here, would it work in America? It's hard to say. It's just so many weapons. It's just a different situation,
Yeah.
But speaking on police brutality, and as Puff mentioned, everyone and their mom has a gun in America. Wouldn't you think it would be all right for the police, rather than defund them, if we just gave them proper training? Because like we can see in the military, these lads have months and months of training, months and months of situational training, months and months of combative training. But then it's just like, this fella signs up to be a cop, which, arguably one of the hardest jobs in society, or stressful even.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, they just have like 6-7 months of training, and then a few hours each year on combatives and whatnot. And then they're expected to excel in these areas, but they're not really given the tools to excel, if you know what I mean. Because the training seems to be so lackluster.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think, included in that training, like we have to start doing screening and really dive into how people feel about other races. You know what I mean? Like if you're like this cops can do all the training and they can excel, and like even if they were doing field training, they could be perfectly fine in doing all that. But like if you have an inherent hate for Black people, you know what I mean? Like once you get out into the field and you pull over a Black person, like those personal feelings are going to come into it. So I think it has to be a lot more psychological training and really getting into the heart of like, who are we putting on our police force right now? You know what I mean? Like, are they good people? Like, what are they? Why are they signing up for it? Like, it's a lot that goes into it, and I can't, I'm no expert in that, but it just seems that there's a lot of people who have signed up to be policemen, who have this underlying hate for opposite races. And we've turned a blind eye to it in America for years and years and years. And we have laws in place, but the people who are hired to uphold those laws, I mean, they see people differently. So, I think the training has a lot to do with it, but and it needs to be more extensive. But I just think the screening of who we're making police officers has to increase as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, because as we know now, Derek Chauvin had about, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 18 other offences, and a handful of complaints made against him as well. So obviously, if there was more psychological training, hopefully that would make him uneligible to be a police officer. But it's just crazy to think that he had all these offences and his chief of police still saw it was okay to give him a job.
I mean, it's just so sad, man. And you see the video. I'm sure everybody's seen the video, and he just looks so casual doing it. Like he just looks so casual, putting his knee on this man's neck, and it's just like, man, like that hate is deeply sown in him. You know what I mean? Like he had no, like it didn't bother him taking that man's life. And you just look at this, and it's just like, could this have been prevented from? You know what I mean? Could we have known that he had this feeling about? And I don't know if he had this feeling about Black people or just people different from himself, or I think he had even had, like, I think he knew, I think they
worked with each other,
so he knew, so it didn't even have to be a Black-white issue. This just might be a personal vendetta or something that happened at work. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know, it's hard. It's just a sad situation, man.
And Puff, I want to ask you something, man. You know more about being an athlete than probably the three of us ever will. And you know just as much as Gavin about what it's like to be an American. So what do you think of when we look back on Colin Kaepernick taking a knee to the US national anthem and the protests which took place at the time and the counter-protests against his peaceful movement? Did you think that his actions were a correct one, or do you think that, oh, it's so disrespectful to the flag and to the anthem and all this kind of stuff?
Man, I was on Cap's side right away. I was on Cap's side, and because for me, it was what he was speaking, man. Everybody's talking about he's taking the knee and he's disrespecting the flag, and everybody wanted to, just gloss over the fact that why is he kneeling? Why is he, quote unquote, disrespecting the flag? Is because this flag isn't standing. This flag, this national symbol, right? The black people and brown people, they don't feel like that's representative of them. You know what I mean? Like the killings that were happening is the exact same. Like everybody is protesting now and they're upset about the police brutality. It was just as bad when Cap started kneeling and peaceful protesting. And the fact that people weren't on board for that and he got blackballed from the league, like I love the NFL, man. I thought I was going to be an American football player before I was going to play basketball, when I was kind of 10, 11, 12, that age range. And I loved the NFL, not more than the NBA, but just as much. And as soon as this happened, like I haven't watched a game since. And I hate that. I hate that I had to give up watching this sport. And it doesn't matter. Like the NFL doesn't lose any money, doesn't lose any sleep over losing a fan who doesn't even live in America anymore. But I was on Cap's side 100%, man. And the people who were kneeling beside him, I appreciated it. And now that we're in a situation that everybody is seeing, because everybody's been stuck at home for the last 3 months, you can't turn a blind eye to what's happening. And that's why all these protests have caught a fire now, have caught wind. So now I'm looking at the NBA situation and, Kyrie is speaking out and people are talking about not playing. And I'm just like, wow, like I've never seen black athletes have this kind of platform, this kind of power. So I'm excited to see just what's about to happen now. I think Cap laid down the framework, the groundwork, and now people are a lot more willing to speak up and being willing to even lose their careers over something that's, it's really killing our country. You know what I mean?
You mentioned the protests there, and as we know, we've had some here at home in Waterford as well for the Black Lives Matter movement. So do you think that Ireland has changed a lot since you arrived here first back in 2007? Do you think it's changed and become more accepting?
It's hard. I think when I came here, there weren't many black faces anywhere. I remember when we moved to Kilkenny, man, I was Googling and I was calling people looking for just a barber shop. I just needed somebody black to cut my hair, man. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. You know what I mean? And then I found X Express. I found a spot in Waterford, so I was coming down there once a week.
Yeah, the guy there, the key. I know him.
Yo, that's my guy, man. He saved my life. Every time I went in there, I would hug him. I'd be like, yo, I'm so happy that I met you, that I found you. So I started going to him, and then I started playing in Dublin, I guess 4 or 5 years ago. And then, I found a couple guys in Dublin that it was just a little bit easier because I was going up there anyway. And now it's like 5, 6 barbershops in Dublin, black barbers. And I'm just like, wow. And then there's just, the African community has really grown. And I just see a lot more faces that look like me all of the time around Ireland. So I think, I think the black community has definitely grown in Ireland. The acceptance, I think one thing for me, I think the African-American population is accepted more by Irish citizens than the African community is. I think people look at me a certain way, when they just see me as a black man in Ireland, and then they hear me talk and they hear my American twang, and it they can kind of relax their shoulders a little bit. So I think they definitely accept me a little bit more than they accept the African community, which is, it's sad. It's sad that people have this connotation of people just upon seeing them of what black people are. And then, hearing me talk and, I can articulate pretty well, I feel. So hearing me talk and it gives them another respect for me, as opposed to hearing the African dialect, or the African accent or whatever. So, it's definitely different. I think it's accepting. I think, racism exists everywhere. And the first thing you look at is when you see somebody different than you automatically assume just certain things. And you know what I mean? I think people that talk about racism and they say, oh, I don't see color. I think that's crazy, man. Of course you see color. That's the first thing we see. You know what I mean? So even when like, when I was looking to date girls, it's like, okay, I don't necessarily look at white or black. So for me, like a big thing is like the shoes that you wear. Like if you got some beat up Nikes on, like I'm not messing with you. You know what I mean? But so I like, this is just my thing. Like I like fresh shoes. I like shoes. Like that's a big deal for me. So if I see a girl with some dirty ass shoes on, I'm not about to talk to you. You know what I mean? That was just whatever. So if you see black first, that's okay. But now what I'm hoping that these protests are bringing forward is that instead of just seeing me as a black guy, just come and talk to me and get to know a little bit about my story. Because, I'm sure girls with dirty shoes are really nice girls. So I'm sure if I got to know some of them, whatever. And, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the race, if the relationships have changed over the years, but I know that I just know that from my experience, there is a difference the way that I'm looked at to the way that the Africans might be looked at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
And then, just a quick question for you then, Puff, about like in terms of dealing with racism in Irish society. One of the big things that we say in the US is that it's institutional racism, right? It's institutional.
Yeah.
It's in the fabric of the society. But I guess in some ways, one of the core examples of institutional racism that we have in Ireland are these direct provision centres, man. So I'm just wondering what you think about that, or have you thought about maybe when basketball and all of the other sporting events come back to Ireland in the coming months, are there any actions that, I mean, obviously we're all planning to take whatever actions we can, but you as an athlete, you have a platform that none of us, I guess, have in that way. So have you thought about maybe any sort of creative strategies that you and your colleagues could maybe take to try and combat racism in this country?
I don't know. I think Basketball Ireland is really good at being inclusive that way.
Oh yeah, of course.
I look at our under 16 national team last year, boys, and they were 7 black kids, on the final 12, which is unheard of. You know what I mean? Like I'd never seen anything like that before. But I do know that, even being at the barbershops in Dublin, some of the guys come in and they kind of say, oh, I played basketball back in the day, but the clubs didn't really want me in there. And this was like kind of 10 years ago. And I think then you look at clubs like Dublin Lions now, and even at Templeogue in Dublin, there are just a lot of young black kids involved. And I think this is great. This is unbelievable. So like, I don't necessarily know. Like I was talking to a couple people in Basketball Ireland. It's kind of like when this all kind of popped off with all the protests and all that, it was kind of like, do we need to set things up for the black community? Like within basketball, can we set, different camps up for the black community? Sometimes that just to let them know that we're inclusive and we want them to be a part of it. But like for me, I know I run camps all the time. I don't want to do a camp and say, hey, this is for black kids only. Like that's not, that's not gonna change the race relations here. So for me, I just try to open it up as much as I can. And I'd hope that because I'm a black man living in Ireland, that it would invite more black people to come to want to be a part of the stuff that I do, to maybe learn my story and learn how I've dealt with it since I've been here. And the more that they learn about that, then they just see, once we combine and we start playing sports, then, racism, like race really doesn't matter. Then it becomes a matter of, can you shoot? Can you dribble? Can you do this? And if you can do that well, I like you within this camp. And if you can't do that well, I don't care if you're black, white, red, whatever, like I ain't trying to be on your team. You know what I mean? And that's just the beauty of sports sometimes, is that it becomes more about ability and what you can do. So, for me, it's just the more programs that Basketball Ireland can keep putting out there, then, the more that different kinds of people can join in, and, hopefully that black community grows within our basketball community.
Yeah. And have you seen the standard of Irish basketball change since you've arrived here?
100%, man. It's like I'm working with kids every day like that. Like I have like 14, 15, 16-year-old girls that can do things that man, I couldn't do till I was like 27, 28. And this is, you know what I mean? So like even in terms of athleticism, even you see the Irish guys are dunking now and they're fast, and it's just totally different. Even from 2007 to now, yeah, the standard of basketball. I think the standard in the 80s when we had all the unbelievable Americans here was an incredibly high standard for Americans. But I think now, as far as the Irish players, you know, they are as skilled and as athletic as they have ever been. You know, and it's now you see the Americans coming in, and it's not like the Americans are the only ones dominating in the Super League even. You know, the Irish players are holding their own and doing even more than that. Like we had a guy on our team this year, Lorcan Murphy, who like he was averaging like 3 or 4 dunks a game as a 6'2" white Irish guy. You know what I mean? So so he's just one of the examples of where the game is kind of going as far as the Irish side is concerned.
Yeah. And you said, I'm sorry.
Sorry, James, go on. Sorry.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to say that since you've seen the standard change, do you think that basketball can become one of the bigger sports for Irish people? Because obviously we have GAA dominating, and then we have soccer and rugby. So do you think that basketball can become bigger?
It's hard because, like, you know, like there's slim pickings. Like, you know, the GAA and rugby and soccer, they probably get the best athletes first, and they become the first sports of a lot of athletes here, young athletes, because you see, like, who doesn't want to play in Croker in front of 80,000 people at an All-Ireland final? Like, you know what I mean? Like, basketball they can't, you know, we can't compete with that. But, you know, what basketball does do is it gives us that opportunity to travel the world to play the game. You know, even with the Irish teams that we go and play international games or whatever, and then the amount of kids who are over in America playing basketball now. Like, I think, you know, I think for young athletes who want to get away from home, like, this is something that obviously would be something that draws them to the game. And then just the nature of basketball is fast paced, super skilled, you know, not a lot of stops, you know. So I think, you know, I'm one of the crazy ones who thinks that Irish basketball will at some point be on the European map of great basketball countries. And that's a long way away. But, you know, I kind of go to work every day, and I'm working with all these kids, and I'm the assistant coach with the senior national men's team now. And, you know, that's just how I go. That's how I go into every single day, hoping that, you know, we get a step closer today, and we just, you know, keep pushing the game forward.
And Puff, just talking there about young people in basketball. Now, this question is mainly towards young people who are trying to get into the NBA. But do you think I know LaMelo Ball and LiAngelo Ball did it when they went to Europe, and then Melo went to Australia to be pro. Mm-hmm. But do you think that kind of model, where you would forego college to go abroad to be a pro, would kind of pick up more traction than, you know, kids taking the traditional route and going into the NCAA?
I think I think it's definitely it's growing legs, because it's just like for Melo and all these guys. Brandon Jennings did it back in like 2008 or whenever that was, 2009. These guys who are going away, like, you're getting to play and practice with pros and learn how to be a pro. And number two, you don't have to go to class, which, you know what I mean? Like, most of these kids are one and dones anyway. So they're going to college for 1 year, and they're going straight to the NBA. So that year of college they're not learning anything as far as getting a college education. You know what I mean? And then 3 is you're getting paid. You know what I mean? So, like, if I'm only going to be 1 year away from going to the NBA, and you're saying you're going to pay me $250,000, like, why am I going to go sit in class and struggle and, you know, only eat Pop-Tarts for breakfast because I can't afford anything else? You know, why would I do that if I don't have to do that? You know, so I think it's definitely something that's going to be more of an option for these 5-star athletes coming out of high school now. You know, for me, I thought college was unbelievable. You know, I think, you know, losing that chance to be around your peers and just go party and be the main man on campus and all of that, like, it's something that every young player should want. But, you know, obviously I was never an NBA talent. So I would know what with somebody coming at me at age 17 and offering me hundreds of thousands of euros to come and play in Europe for a year, I wouldn't know what that feels like. So, I'm kind of on the fence with both. I just think that the NCAA has made enough money off all these athletes that if they want to kind of take that ownership into their own hands and go make some money before they get into the NBA, then, why shouldn't they?
Yeah, 100%. And also, Puff, just to change the subject a little bit there, you mentioned earlier you were majoring in economics at Davidson.
Mm-hmm.
With an economics major and knowing what we know now about the coronavirus, do you still, or did you think to begin with that the whole economy should have been shut down completely?
I didn't know how to respond to this, man. I'd never seen anything like this. I thought this was just stuff that happened in like the movies or something, or like in the 1920s or something.
Yeah.
So when it hit, I just didn't understand. I was like, the whole world is just shut down. So you know what I mean. So I was just like, at first when it all kind of hit, I was mad because the end of our season got canceled, and I was just so small-minded, not thinking of anything outside of my own box. And then you started seeing the numbers in Italy and Spain. We had a Spanish guy on our team, and he was just like, he was sending into our group chat every day the numbers of deaths that were happening. And then we started seeing it. Like I started seeing it. My mom is a nurse in the States, and so she started talking about the cases they were getting. And I was like, sheesh. So when everything did shut down, as much as we all wanted to just be out in the world, I was just kind of riding that wave, and I was just like, if this is what it takes for everything to go back to normal, then, I didn't think anything else of it, because I think before anything, dealing with money or the economy or businesses, going under, right, the most important thing in the world is just our health. And I think it's something that we all take for granted a lot of the time, being healthy and taking care of ourselves. So now that something was threatening the health of the whole human race worldwide, it's just like, how can we protect that? How can we protect our health? And so for me, the whole lockdown, shutdown, I have a small business with Why Not Me and trying to do basketball training in that, and it was put on hold. And my wife runs a gymnastics club as well, which was put on hold. But, I've spent so much time with my daughters these last 3-4 months, and, just trying to build routines into your life where your family is most important and your health is most important. I think it's been unbelievable. I think so that it's been a lot of negatives with the economy, obviously with the lockdown happening. But I think, a lot more people have found a lot of joy in these 4 months than they could have ever imagined,
It's very true, yeah.
And do you think, well, actually, no, my first question is, where does Irish basketball, the season, stand at the minute now that you said that it was the end of the season, it was coming towards it? So is the season cancelled outright or?
Yeah, they just shut it down. So it was only one regular season game left. So it was kind of like, so it was kind of controversial the way it ended, because there were two teams that were fighting for the top spot. So there was Belfast Star and Tralee. And then there was a ruling that Tralee had 2 games taken away from them because they played an illegal player. So they were up by a game, and they ended up losing those 2 games. So Star were awarded the league, which was pretty crazy. It was a little bit controversial. It sucked for Star because they had had such a great year, and then to be awarded the league not on seemingly merit, you know what I mean? And now Tralee, we're all mad about it, obviously. And then, nobody knew what was going to happen that final game, so it could have went either way. And then we didn't get to play the playoffs, which we were looking forward to, because our Templeogue team had won the league, or had won the cup. We had lost the league, so we were hoping to get that second trophy in the playoffs, to kind of cap the season off. So, there was a little bit of, it just didn't get to end. You never know who was going to come out on top in that last playoffs, and, which sucked. But, what can you do, man? Like, everybody was suffering from it. every sport got shut down. So, now it's just kind of trying to move forward and get ready for the next season.
Yeah. And how have you kept fit throughout the lockdown? I think we're coming into nearly the 4th month now. And as we see the restrictions being eased, it's kind of easier for people now. But for a while there, it was pretty much within 2 kilometers of your home. So how hard was it for you to keep your fitness up?
Man, I think for some athletes are very intrinsically motivated, and it's just like something like, for me, it's just my lifestyle. It's just I'm working out every day regardless. And then so what was great for me and what I've been trying to preach, with the younger kids that I train, is just like, you have to find a way to make yourself better, and not everybody has access to a gym all the time. And luckily for me, I always did, since I've been in Ireland. People have been very accommodating, and I can go shoot whenever I want and this and that. And so when that was taken away, it was kind of, if you want to be this guy telling kids to go out there and work on their games all the time when they don't have the same gym access as you, then you need to go and do that, So it was, I went through, I think on Instagram, I went like 55 straight days or something where I was just posting some kind of ball handling or some kind of basketball video for people to do. Just to show them that there were ways that we could get better. Like we happened to just move into a house the past year. We built a house. So I had a little bit of room in my shed. So I kind of used the weights and the things that I had to build a little weight room for myself. And so it didn't stop for me. I think I feel more in shape now than I did before the virus hit.
And what does it feel for you like, Puff? For as you, an athlete who played a team sport for all of these years, not to be able to train with your teammates? I mean, that must be a really unusual feeling.
Hard. It's so hard. It's the hardest part. It's so for me now, I'm coming to kind of the end of my career. The next, I might squeeze a couple more years out of it, but the biggest fear for me is not missing the game. It's just missing those teammates. And, so I thought about last year being my last year playing. I was going to kind of move on to the next step. But then the season got cut short. And, straight away, it's just the first thing you miss is just you miss the bus rides with your teammates. You miss the conversations in the changing room. All the slagging that goes on and then making fun of the younger players who are coming on. And, all of that stuff that comes with team sports is just like, man, like not having them around and not even having the possibility of going to even play a pickup game with guys that you love is just like, nah, I don't think I think I need 1 or 2 more years, So that's been, this whole 4 months has been trying to convince my wife to let me drive up to Dublin, for another year.
And what are your plans post-retirement from the game? Do you plan on going full on into the coaching like you are at the minute? Or do you plan on kind of doing something else?
Nah, I'm going basketball is it for me, man. It's it. Like I'm not so much the coaching, so I don't really have a want of being a Super League coach or anything like that. I just want to stay on the player development side, and I want to deal with the younger players. And, I think it'll make it a little bit easier to even deal with the more senior players. Because right now it's still a bit awkward that people don't really want to come out and work out with me because, I can use every workout when I work out, say, a guy from UCD as a scouting report opportunity for myself. You know what I mean? Because I'm playing against them next week or whatever. So I just think once I stop playing, then I can start working out the more elite, quote unquote elite players in the country, and just trying to help basketball get to a higher level. Hopefully, just do my bit in that.
Yeah. And how different? Oh, sorry, sorry again. Go on. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say there, Puff. When retirement does come, since you mentioned you want to work on player development and all that, would you? Maybe you're doing this already now, but would you use that as kind of an opportunity to grow? Your Why Not Me business.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put a lot of time and energy into it then. I put a lot of time and energy into it now, but it's I'm just a player at heart, man. It drives my wife crazy sometimes that, there's certain, like I should be doing more academies in a year. I think I can reach more kids and I'm not reaching as many as I can because obviously the time that it takes for me to drive up and down to Dublin and the training, and then the training I have to do on my own to stay somewhat fit. And then there's I'm in charge of the scouting for our team. I'm the assistant coach for Templeogue as well. So I'm doing all the scouting and the video work. So it's just a lot of time that I'm putting into it, So once you take away all of that stuff, then that I'll just have a lot more time to put into Why Not Me and really driving in and connecting with a lot more players,
And how difficult is it to grow the sport in Kilkenny? Because I mean, we all know Kilkenny is hurling ground. So how do you even get a foot in there, man?
Man, it is so hard. It is so hard. And like our girls side, with the club that I'm with here at Kilkenny Stars has really, really grown. And like we have an excellent girls side. Like the team that I coach, our under 18s, made it to the National Cup quarterfinal this year. We just, unfortunately had to run into the Waterford Wildcats, who have been kicking our butts for the last 5 years that I've been coaching this under 18 team. But so just the boys side is just so hard to build any kind of momentum because they kind of use it here as just a season to stay fit until hurling starts back up. You know what I mean? Like we have a lot of boys teams, but the commitment is not the same as what the girls have given the club so far. And like we had an Irish international 5 or 6 years ago, Cullen Prenderville, who is on, I think he's on the minors team and kind of flirts with the Kilkenny hurling team as well. But he had to give it up just because he was from a hurling background, and he made the under 16 Irish team, and he was on the starting 5. He was gonna make the under 18 team, and he just came to me before one of our National League games and was like, "Man, I got to give up basketball." And I was like, "Man," So it's losing a guy like him who could have really put basketball on the map for the males in Kilkenny was hard, but. It's hard, man. It's hard in Kilkenny.
And as well, Puff, in Kilkenny, is there any kind of basketball culture? Because recently around Waterford anyway, I've been seeing a lot of, over the last 6 to 12 months anyway, I've been seeing a lot of young fellas around Waterford in NBA gear. Now, I don't know if that's because they watch NBA or if it's because it's now trendy. But still, seeing the young people wear the NBA gear in Waterford, it is kind of surreal because obviously we all know how popular hurling and Gaelic is. So to see this outside sport, I don't want to say flourish, but kind of you can see the seeds being planted in Waterford anyway.
It's definitely coming. And I think Waterford Vikings have a great tradition anyway of I think they used to be Waterford Crystals back in the day when they were in the Super League. So there's a great history of basketball in Waterford, and like guys like Dean Kavanagh and Eamon Murphy, they do a great job of really just pushing the game forward. And I think there is a basketball culture in Kilkenny. I think for younger kids now is just so easily accessible to watch the NBA and the NBA highlights with like Instagram and YouTube and the NBA app and all this, that it's just easier. So say when in 2007, there were hardly any NBA games being shown here in Ireland. It was just really hard to get access to it. So now I think it's growing that way. And every kid who plays video games is playing 2K. So like they know the players just like that. They know more about, like Giannis's stats than I know just from playing 2K and keeping up with it on there. So I think there definitely is a culture that's starting to be there. And I think they're wearing so much NBA gear because Elvery's had a sale a couple months ago, and they were selling T-shirts for like $8.99. Yeah, but it is changing. It's going to be slow. Like it's always going to be a hurling. Kilkenny is always going to be a hurling area, and I don't want to change that. I don't want to take away from the rich tradition that there is. I just want to show that there's another avenue that kids that might not love hurling as much have there for them,
And what does the next season of Super League have in store for you? Are you contracted with Templeogue for the upcoming season, or are you kind of free agent at this stage?
Nah, I'm always a free agent, man. I'm always a free agent. When you get this old, it's kind of like I just float about. So they've asked me to come back. I've also been asked by a couple other teams to come to them. There's a team in Carlo IT. They've asked me to come on board there. So and do my master's there, which doing a master's in kind of sports analysis and sports performance, like it's really exciting because it kind of would add to what I'm doing with Why Not Me, and be able to take it even further on with video analysis, even more so than I do now. So the thought of that excites me, but it's just hard. Like the travel to Dublin has been hard, but the relationship I have with my guys at Templeogue, it's, this is the longest I've ever played at a club, and it's the hardest thing for Americans coming over here is that you're always kind of the outsider. It's like you're coming into a club of established players that play year in, year out together. And the fact that I've gotten to be with this same club for 4 years in a row is just, it's something I've never gotten to experience before. So it, it's a decision I have to make. And then my wife is kind of in my ear, and it's kind of like, you're getting too old. When are you going to start, being a grown up? And, I'm never going to listen to that. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. My heart is always going to be with Templeogue. Going to a place like Carlo would mean that the kids in Kilkenny and the Carlo area would get to see me a lot more, and I'd get to, kind of practice what I preach. Hopefully them seeing me play would just be an extension of what I'm trying to teach them day in and day out anyway. So, that the thought of that excites me as well. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
You've got a very unique story. It's a really amazing story, I have to say, coming from somebody in Ireland that I wouldn't be too into basketball, but I have to say it's a great story. And do you often wonder, like, if you could have done anything differently, if you could have moved anywhere else or anything, do you think, would you have done anything differently?
I don't think so. I talk to my wife about it all the time. Like when our first daughter was born, I had opportunities to go play in a couple teams in Spain, and a couple opportunities in Italy had arisen. And sometimes I kick myself for not going to those opportunities just to see what level I could have gotten to, because I felt like I could have played at a decently high level, but I had a family, man. I had a family, and I have great people around me here in Ireland, and it's been unbelievable. Like you go back to when I was 22, 23 and thinking of being a professional basketball player, I never would have thought by age 36 that I'm, settled down with a house and a mortgage and a wife and 2 kids in Kilkenny, Ireland. Like, this was not the plan, but there's nothing better than it, man. It's just my wife has been so supportive, and she's allowed me to continue to grow as a person and as a basketball player and a basketball trainer. And then my kids have just been, once you have kids, it's just everything is about them anyway. So I don't want anything to be different.
And have you got a family legacy going on? Are the kids playing basketball?
That's a whole nother podcast, bro. How much I've been trying to, man. Because I can't, like, my wife runs a gymnastics club, and, having 2 young girls, I cannot compete with the cartwheels and the flips and the backflips. And, now we got a trampoline. We got an in-ground trampoline. So it's like, you ask my 11-year-old daughter, do you want to do some ball handling, or do you want to go do some backflips on a trampoline? Like, I can't compete with that. So she's actually pretty good. My 11-year-old is pretty good. Just because she's always around it. And when I'm working people out, like, just because we don't have a childminder all the time, she has to be there with me. So she's seen a lot more basketball than I'd say 90% of the whole population in Ireland is seeing, just being around me all the time, So she's pretty good because of that. My 3-year-old, she'll pick up a basketball and dribble it once or twice if she really wants something from me. But other than that, she hates basketball. And I'm totally fine with that. All I want them to take from me, like, I just want them to kind of see my everyday preparations and the way that I take care of my body and get ready for games and all that. I just want them to see how much it takes to really try to be great at something you love. You know what I mean? So, and not saying that I'm a great basketball player, but I work really, really hard at it. And if they can take that away from it, from whatever they choose to do, then I'm cool with that. They don't have to play basketball, but if they do, obviously we're gonna have a better relationship.
And Puff, just since you've played AAU and obviously in Ireland, would you be able to speak on the likes of, say, Dirk Nowitzki or Luka Doncic or even Porzingis, these European players who, when they get to the NBA, they excel. And we can even see with Luka, he's probably, or even Dirk, probably the best stories of, a European excelling, because Luka is just unbelievable.
Crazy. Crazy.
Comparing your time playing AAU and then playing in Europe, would you be able to speak on any differences in both programs?
But I think the way it's done in Europe, especially with countries like Slovenia, where Luka was coming from, and he spent a lot of time in Spain, which is like the player development central of Europe. It feels, Spain and Serbia. So like when I went over to Spain briefly and played, it was like we would have a practice in the morning that was all skill work, and then we have another practice at nighttime that was a team practice. But then you'd also have lifts, 2 or 3 lifts during the week. And this was every day and the season started in August and it went till like June. So it was like 10 months out of the year, there have been, 2, 3 practices a day. And then you add to the academy players, which might have, another academy practice that day. Like they're getting a lot of basketball in, a lot of basketball training and learning, just learning how to play the game. And then you take the AAU system, you know what I mean? Like you play your high school season or whatever, and then you come to AAU season and it was no skill training. It's just all games. You know what I mean? Like I think I could have played 50 or 60 games in a summer, one summer when I was playing AAU, which is great as far as exposure and testing yourself against other players. But as far as actually learning the game and getting better and really honing in on your craft, like it's not as much of that. So I think that's where American sports has really struggled. And then you see all of these trainers in America now. There's 5 million people who do what I do in America. It's just everybody who has ever coached anything basketball just calls themselves a trainer, and now they're trying to kind of take money from kids that way or whatever. So it's a lot of specialization in America that I don't like. There's a lot of 9 and 10-year-olds who are solely focusing on basketball. And they're playing it year round, and they're just starting to get burnt out. It's just a different system. Like even with all the basketball that you do in Europe as the junior players, I just feel like they take care of you a little bit better, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Puff, a question for you about just living a healthy life, taking it back down to the local level, the human level. I always wonder when I see these ads on Facebook or I see videos about protein shakes or vitamins and taking this mineral and taking that every morning, every night time. How do you live a balanced, healthy life? Do you take any of these different things, or do you think it's a lot of bullshit?
I'm not going to say it's bullshit because, there's people that have a lot more knowledge in it than I do. But I know for me, I've been a pretty successful athlete and I feel like I've been a high performance athlete for a number of years. And, the protein that I take, I eat some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I eat some omelets in the morning, and, I get out. Like, I think I try to do it all as organically as I can. And, I don't really deal with tablets. Like, I don't like taking pills that much. I don't really deal with pills and all different vitamins. I just try to eat as healthy as I can, eat a lot of vegetables, eat the protein, eat a lot of chicken, stay away from too many red meats. So I'm just trying to eat a pretty balanced diet. I eat 4 or 5 meals a day just because I'm working out so much. But, I've never been anybody into, the pre-workout supplements or anything like that. And, it works, and I'm sure it does work because they wouldn't be, million and billion dollar industries if they didn't work. But, it's just not something I've really ever gotten into.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then I don't want to make you too sentimental or anything, but looking back at the career you've had, what would you say has been the biggest highlight? Has it been those days at Davidson, or has it been winning the Super League or playing abroad, or what would you put it as?
I don't know. Like I don't know. Nobody's really even asked me that before. I don't think I've ever really even thought of what's my favorite moment or whatever. I just think I've just enjoyed every year of it, like every day of it. Just from the first day that I ever got like 1 penny for playing basketball as a professional, it was just like, you really gonna give me money to play this game? You know what I mean? And that was the feeling, and I felt like that from age 23 when I started playing, or age 22 when I got out of college, and I still feel like that to this day. That I'm almost 37 now, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Like when I get 1 penny, it doesn't matter how much or how little, when somebody feels that I'm doing enough that warrants me to get paid for playing the game, it's just every week, every month, every whatever. It's a blessing, man. So like there's a lot of moments like winning the Super League for me, and winning 2 cups with Templeogue, and we won a Champions Trophy. Like I've won a lot of trophies with Templeogue, and I guess for a while it felt like that certified me. Like it made my career mean a little bit more. But like, for me, like I was a champion before the trophies. You know what I mean? Like the way that I carry about, like I made myself a champion. Like I worked myself into being a champion. Like the trophies are extra and the winning is extra. And I say that to all young people, even the young people getting cut from Irish teams and all of that. Like, you're not an Irish international just because some coach picks you as one of these 12 players. Like it's a mentality. Being a professional has been a mentality for me, and just, learning how to shield out all the bullshit from my life and keep the positive energy around me consistently for the last 15, 16 years. And I know how cliche it sounds, like, oh, it's all about the journey, all about the journey. Like I hate when sports people always say that, because that's all they say. Because like, everybody wants to win at the end of the day. But for me, I just really enjoy I just love the game so much, man. So I don't really know what's the best moment that I've had.
My last question for you from my end anyway would be about the future of the Super League. From looking at the table and looking at the teams that are in the season, I mean, a lot of them are in Dublin. How do you think the sport can spread around the entire nation instead of just being focused in the capital?
I don't know. I think it's the finances is the hardest part. I think a lot of why the teams in Dublin are succeeding now is because with the scholars coming in, a lot of Americans that teams are getting in are coming in under the scholars programs. You know what I mean? So now you're not paying as much for accommodation, maybe because the colleges are helping you with the accommodation, and you're not paying the pros as much because they're also getting their masters. So it makes a difference. I don't know, like, Cork kind of has 2 or 3 teams always kind of thereabouts. So Kerry has 2 teams in the Super League now. Galway has 2 teams. We probably need more teams from up north. We only have Belfast Star at the moment. Ballina, Mayo, like places like that, remote areas like that, like they need to have teams. You know what I mean? Like it's like I remember when I first came to Mayo, when my first game in Ballina, the place was packed, man. It was like 500 or 600 people in there, and it was rocking.
Wow.
And you know what I mean? Like it was a buzz throughout the whole town every weekend because, we were having games there and there was a lot of people. And I remember we had a game in Tralee, a cup quarterfinal, and I think we had like 2 or 3 busloads of people from Ballina made the trip down there. So, the small communities like that, they really jump on board with Super League teams. I don't know how to promote it as much. I think it starts at the grassroots level. Like, can you build your club enough so that you have 5 or 6 Super League level players at a certain stage, so that you're not always dependent on these pros coming in and year out, So, it's a process. I think Tralee is doing a good job, and Karen Donahue is unbelievable at promoting the sport, and obviously using his stature with the GAA to kind of bring people on board. So I think a lot of basketball people get mad that, you know, he's so famous from GAA and he gets so much credit with bringing people in. But if we can use those GAA links to make people more interested in basketball, like we got to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All I'm waiting for there to be like a Kilkenny hurler who's on that Kilkenny team, who's also a great basketball player, and we can have a bit of crossover. So then I can get up in there.
Do you think we could see the inclusion of more teams, possibly like similar to the way the GAA operates, where maybe there could be one in every county? Or do you think that basketball has just too far of a way to go for that kind of scenario?
No, I think a 20-team league in the Super League is not far-fetched, because I look at the teams in the National League right now. I think we have 12 teams in the National League, or maybe 13, and we have 12 teams in the Super League. And so the best 4 or 5 teams in National League are not that far behind the worst 4 or 5 teams in the Super League. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? So like having a 16-team league is not that crazy. And then, you know what I mean? So from there, it's just like, you know, can we just keep building these clubs up? You know, and now, like, I think it even costs more money to play in the National League because it's so much more far spread out. Like, there's teams in Donegal, there's teams in Sligo, then you got teams in Cork, Kerry, Limerick. So it's really, really spread out for the National League. So we just got to get our Super League to start looking a little bit more like that, I think.
And then obviously as well, Puff, because, you know, the teams are so spread out, would obviously then the infrastructure in Ireland would have a massive part to play in it being so costly to get to each area. So I suppose hopefully, you know, I myself, I'm sure you as well, we would like to see more teams in the Irish League. But I suppose with such poor infrastructure, it might be for that to be possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with every club, even clubs that don't have senior teams, like just with underage. The amount of money we spend just trying to get training times and finding enough times to get every team in there. There's just not enough gyms. You know, like when I played in Australia, I was playing in Adelaide, and there was a 12-team league, and every team had their own stadium where there was 4, you know, regulation-sized full courts. You know what I mean? So, like, if you wanted to go play, it was literally you pay $2 and you go in and you play for an hour, 2 hours, or whatever. So we just don't have that. You know, we don't have the ability to have 4 or 5 teams practicing at the same time in the same area. So, like, you know, obviously, if we had more gyms or more teams own their own stadiums or own gyms, then it'd be a little bit easier. But, you know, we just you got to kind of work with what you have, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned briefly about your company, Why Not Me Hoops. Can you give us a little bit of information more about what you do at the company and maybe promote it so that if people want to get in touch with you, what they can do to find you?
Yeah, so for me, I think I started it as just you know, I called it Why Not Me. It was something that my mentor, his name is Keith Jennings. He played in the NBA for a few years. He was 5'7". He was from my hometown, so he always would say, you know, every time we worked out together, he would be like, "Why not you? Why not you? Why can't you be this? Why can't you be that?" And it just kind of stuck with me. And I got it tattooed on me when I was like 18 or 19. And so when I got here, I saw that basketball and training individually wasn't really a big thing. And it was something that was necessary for me anyway to kind of learn the game and really learn my craft. So I started working out a couple people individually. And from that, you know, I started in Galway. They asked me to start doing camps. So I started doing a few camps with really low numbers, and they were pretty successful. And then it just became something that I knew was something that Ireland needed. So now I'm doing a lot of clinics around the country. I do camps, and I think I was in 7 or 8 counties last year. And I'm just doing individual workouts kind of every day. And I've been doing them on Zoom since the pandemic, you know, started or whatnot. So Why Not Me is basically, it's not necessarily for elite athletes or for people who are great. It's just for, kids or adults or whoever it is who want to be a little bit better and want to just push themselves a little bit more than what their clubs or their teams are pushing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Puff, it's been amazing really to hear your story, and as I said earlier, it's a really unique story and very uplifting that somebody that we see the NBA as being the summit, and it's really uplifting to find somebody that's truly found happiness in somewhere as out of the way on the basketball map as Ireland, and it's a really nice story, and we're very privileged to have you on. So thanks very much for coming on and talking to us.
Man, I really appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun, man.
Yeah. And
thanks, Puff.
So yeah, thanks very much, and maybe we'll talk to you again about the basketball season or where basketball is going in Ireland. And so yeah, hopefully we'll be in touch again. So and anyway, thanks very much. And anyway, that's it from us here.
We got to do it. We got to do it in person next time, man.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Hey, Puff. On the court, man. On the court.
If you want to do that, I'm cool with that always. Always.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's it from us here at the New View. And again, thanks to Lawrence Puff Summers. And so that's us signing off.